Sunrise Extra on a Tuesday. We are talking about all things school and teachers and COVID because this started kind of yesterday with the news that Governor Brown said, she wants to move up teachers to be the next kind of in line to get the vaccine. Amongst the news that Oregon is in the top 10 slowest states for the vaccine rollout. We've only given shots in the arm with 27% of the doses the state has. That means 73% of those shots are still sitting in the freezer. The governor promising to get those out faster. So we asked you yesterday on Instagram, and I just refreshed my memory. Should schools reopen to in-person classes before teachers get vaccinated? And the results are almost identical to our Twitter poll today. About 75-24, 70-30 in there of people saying no, schools should wait to reopen to in-person for teachers to get those vaccines. And at the rate that we are going right now, it may not be till late February or March, and that is a generous timeline. So we want to know what you guys think. We're getting a ton of comments on this. You saw the percentage there. I want to take a few comments right now that we've gotten from people to kind of jumpstart your thoughts, viewers, and then you guys chime in and let us know. So this is Sarah. She says, in 3 weeks, I have to go back to in-person teaching, as does my son. I'm very nervous, and I hope I can get the vaccine before that happens. I'm feeling expendable. Thank you, Sarah, for weighing in. It's a great comment.
We'd love to know what school district she's with.
Yeah. This person says, what about childcare providers? We've been open since day one and no one's saying we should get vaccinated. We're working with children and are open. Childcare providers should be first in line for vaccines. And here, a couple more here. This person texted us and they say, yes, teachers need to go back. Virtually 0 schools who are fully in person have demonstrated any outbreaks. How many more suicides and kids facing depression is enough? And here's one more, and then we'll kind of check in on your guys' live comments. Why would we choose to take a chance with people's lives when we have the current option not to do so? We can hold out until the threat is over. We've made it this far. The inconvenience of it all, what does CDL stand for? Mass is our duty as humans to withstand, to protect one another. Our schools should not reopen yet.
CDL is comprehensive distance learning.
Very good. Spoken like a true dad, yes.
Parents with kids in 6th grade or 7th grade now, I know that term.
Yeah, exactly.
It is tough. We were discussing this. I think you had just stepped out of the studio for a moment there, Nina. Rod, I know you were in the weather center there, but Brenda was asking me, how do I feel as a parent who has kids in 7th grade? And we could be facing this very situation in our school district here in a few weeks. And, everyone's got a different situation. I feel like this is such a personal topic that affects so many people. Yeah. So I personally, if the school said, hey, Drew, we're going to open back up the school, all of our teachers are on board with this, they're excited to have the kids back in the classroom, I would say, boys, you're going back to class. I would be okay with our sons going back to that in-person environment. But at the same time, if I was told, this handful of teachers from our school, they're just not comfortable teaching in person, we're going to continue with distance learning, I'm going to say, okay. Because it's very hard for me, as someone who's not going into that building, to tell someone else, you have to go in that building. And again, I also told Brenda, quite honestly, our kids seem to be doing okay with the distance learning, and I know so many others are not. So it's almost like a selfish response on my end to say, well, I'm fine with it, because I know my kids right now are fine with it. But again, getting back to the original point, I just think it's so hard, like that last viewer, their point of teachers must get back in the classroom. It would be very hard for me to say that to a teacher's face.
We have comments from other parents. I think we should play a little more of the video and the interviews that we've done, because that really does give you a full sense of where everybody's coming from. Director Brian, do we have those ready? Okay, Woodland parents are heading back. They're doing some in-person learning. So let's take a look at that.
Mentally, what it's done to our kids is it's sad. My kids that have never had anxiety and depression, struggling with it, and so many other kids that I know that loved school and then they hated school when it was online.
You just hear the emotion in her voice, right? She's kind of there on the verge of tears. We also spoke to an Evergreen teacher. Here's what he had to say.
We've also worked out the mechanism for having parents let us know their children are feeling well or they aren't feeling well.
Okay, that was an Evergreen School District spokesperson. I was thinking of another man.
He's with Gresham Barlow. So here's the deal. Before we play, the Evergreen schools Woodland School District in Washington starts a hybrid model today. So that means 2 days a week, kids, and these are the little ones, elementary school kids, who have the toughest time doing virtual learning. They're going back 2 days a week. The rest is virtual. Evergreen starts going back for the same kind of hybrid model. The littlest ones start in 2 weeks, and then they'll phase in older from there. We also talked to a Gresham Barlow teacher who you're going to hear from now. Gresham hasn't started in person, but he was asked how he would feel about it.
The real direct question to ask anybody who says, well, kids don't get as sick and the death toll isn't as high, is how many dead students are worth it? How many dead colleagues should I be okay with?
You know, I understand where he's coming from as far as the colleagues go. I did, when I heard that bite initially, when I heard that soundbite from that teacher, I did question, how many dead students, and I'm thinking, how many people under the age of 18 have we seen in either Oregon or Washington since the pandemic began die from COVID? I mean, that number is minuscule, if it's even existing at all.
Maybe one in Washington State, but yeah.
But I don't, if the one child was my child, then that's all that would matter to me, right? I mean, I get that. To me, in our school district right now is giving families the choice. If and when they go back to a hybrid system, we have the choice to keep our kids back home 100% of the time, and they can continue with that distance learning model. So really, from our standpoint, there is no pressure on families. Whether you want your kid to go back into the classroom or whether you want them to stay at home, you're going to have that choice, even if the schools in our district elect to go back to some form of in-person learning. That doesn't help, and I don't know the answer when it comes to the teachers in the district. Are they forced to go back in the classroom if that decision is made? And they don't really have a choice, right? They'll have to be there.
Well, Rod, you also have a daughter over in Washington who's doing distance learning right now.
Correct, yeah. My thought on this is I'm going to say, personally, I think it would be wrong to require a teacher to go back in the classroom who does not want to go until they're vaccinated. So to me, that just makes sense. I like that Governor Brown, I think we reported, said that they're going to do what they can, the state of Oregon anyway, to speed up getting vaccinations to teachers. So, I don't think anybody should be forced to go into a setting after what we've been through unless that they feel comfortable, to be honest. But certainly now that the vaccine is available, I think that's the case. But, we're very anxious in our home for our daughter to get back in school. She goes to Vancouver iTech Preparatory. A lot of their learning curriculum is group-based, actually. And so, you can't do much group-based learning when you're not in a group. Zoom doesn't work for that. It just doesn't. So we're anxious for Natasha to get back. I think she's anxious to get back. But to me, the proper thing would be to let's get these teachers vaccinated and then get the kids back. And then, the last thing, it's not just COVID. We had other stories. There's a lot of things coming into here, the depression of students. So there's so many angles to look at, but clearly we need to get this vaccination ramped up.
Even the people who are saying not yet for in-person learning, I don't think anybody disputes the fact that kids need to be in school. Learning remotely is one thing, for some of them, but just in general, kids need to be face-to-face with the people who are teaching them and with their peers. There's so much more about life that happens in school than just academics.
You remember, Brenda, last year the big story was how, tragic in a lot of ways that the seniors were missing out on their senior activities that I'm sure they had been looking forward to for years. Now we have an entire class of seniors that potentially could be missing out on their entire senior year. So, we're what, at the halfway point, right? We just got through holiday break, and we'll see if we can turn the corner between now and May and June when school gets out again. I
just wonder, there's just such different parameters for different groups of people. And when you really boil it down, it makes no sense. We've been fine with collectively having, essential workers like people working at grocery stores or Costco or gas stations who are in contact with thousands of so many different kinds of socioeconomic people in their face and touching all of the same things. And we've been, obviously they haven't been vaccinated this whole time. That woman brought up that she works in a childcare facility that have been open this entire time. My daughter's been going to school this whole time. Her whole little school, it's preschool, they're little. They can't wear masks, so the kids aren't required to wear masks, but they have, little groups of only 10 kids that only interact with those 10 kids. There's ways to do it, and those teachers haven't been vaccinated this whole time, but we've been fine with it. Mm-hmm. Private schools have been going to in-person learning. Those people haven't been vaccinated, but there's ways to, like we had this story today of, lots of plexiglass being ordered, and maybe when students come into a classroom, there's a wall of plexiglass and the teacher is behind it, and the kids, there's only 10 to a classroom and they're spaced out. There's going to be changes. It's not going to be normal school like we know it, but I just don't understand how we, group people differently. And it's kind of the same with those mayors and county leaders who say one thing and then take a nice trip to Hawaii or Mexico, like the rules don't apply to them. And so, Rod, you're smiling, I know.
He's smiling about the trips, I think. I'll tell you that I don't think you can compare a preschool setting, unless you have the largest preschool in Oregon that's ever existed, to something like Reynolds High School that we talked about earlier this morning with 2,800 students. Try dividing that group of 2,800 into groups of 10. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have enough space to divide them all up into such small little groups.
Well, they're not going to be all there at the same time. They're not going to be, it's going to be a hybrid model of maybe half of them are there 2 days a week and they use a gym and they use outdoor areas or something.
Right.
There's ways to make it safer.
How many people do you think those preschool instructors at your child's preschool interact with in the building? Like, how many total people 5 days a week?
Obviously it's way less.
Yeah. So,
but I'm just saying, like a Fred Meyer worker or a Safeway worker or something, like, they've been working this whole time.
No, your point's well taken. Your point's well taken.
You guys, great conversation, but we have so many people weighing in. So hop on the stream and look. So Ashley McDaniel Harpster says, as the wife of a Portland public school teacher and mother of a baby, it's difficult to think about my husband going back to school when he's not vaccinated. I'm concerned he will bring COVID home and pass it along to us. My child's immune system is still developing and I'm immune compromised. So that's just one of the comments. And Jeannie Miller says, teachers chose their profession, basically, just like a nurse chooses that profession. So Jenny, rather, is saying, she thinks that they should go back, I guess, basically that they know what they're in for.
And if you're, immunocompromised or anything, it has to be case by case for school staff. If they do not want to go, then you have, you can't, fire them or get rid of their position or something. You have to make it, they can still do virtual, or if they have some kind of health, real health concern before they're vaccinated.
Yeah, Wendy Stewart wrote, I think, a very thoughtful comment. Wendy says, I know they have stayed open in British Columbia, and the numbers are lower there than here. This was even before the vaccine was available. Maybe a good story would be for you guys to present a bunch of facts from places, countries, provinces, states, and how they are managing it, and ask if that approach seems reasonable here. If you want to throw in an equal number of places that are failing too, otherwise this question is just designed to foster divide. There's certainly the argument that if you look at states that have been harshly locked down, states that have not been locked down hardly at all, my home state, Missouri, one of those. At the end of the day, as far as I know, the COVID numbers simply aren't that different. They're just not. And that feeds the question that Nina said. Well, if you work at Costco or Fred Meyer, you're dealing with all kinds of people all the time. So I don't know. It's a very interesting concept. But to me, I keep in my mind coming back, we have a vaccine. let's not force anybody to do anything they don't feel comfortable doing. Let's get that vaccine out.
Jeff Lucas, one of our regulars on the stream, says, I fear for the children's mental health. That's also something that we hear a lot, is parents saying that my kids aren't doing so well at home.
Right.
And you know what? There's a lot of kids who don't do so well when they go to school and they get bullied, and I worry about their mental health every single school year.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, kids have taken their lives based on what happens within the walls of a school. Playing devil's advocate this morning, but I'm just saying it's a fact. It's a fact. You know, some of these kids I bet you there's a lot of kids who have been bullied for a majority of their school careers who are happy that they're not going there right now.
Sure.
Absolutely.
What my point is this, and I'm not coming down on anyone who thinks the opposite of what I just said. My point is that every family has a different situation. And people are only thinking about their own family, their own kids typically, their own situations and how their kids feel. But there's so many different backgrounds that are at play here. And it's hard to come up with that one answer that's going to make every single family at all these different schools throughout the state happy.
There is.
And maybe it's like, you know, if a teacher says, yeah, I'll go back, or they get vaccinated and they're like, I'm totally comfortable going back. And it is, you know, and I know Westland is giving that option of, do you want to stay virtual? Do you want to do a hybrid? Do you want to be 100% in when that's available? Maybe they just keep that option open, you know, and people can kind of do what they're comfortable with doing. And the teacher, you know, if they're comfortable only doing virtual, the class is virtual.
That's going to be
that
where it gets
class.
difficult.
Maybe the student is at the high school, but they're, you know, on a computer in the library taking that one class that the teacher's not available for. I mean, there's, you know, so many ways to work it.
Jennifer Taft says teachers have been defunded, expected to tolerate gun violence. This is the straw that broke the camel's back.
You know, I did hear from a coworker. I don't have to say which of our coworkers told me this yesterday, but a cousin of theirs is actually quitting their job as a teacher because their school in our area is going back to in-person learning here, I guess, in the next few weeks. And this particular educator, this teacher, this cousin of our coworker said, I'm out. I'm done. If I don't have the choice, if you're not giving me the choice, then I'm going to choose on my own to bail after like many years as a teacher. The way the story was told to me.
On the flip side, there could be other teachers saying, I'm done because I want to be back and I can't teach. I'm going to find something else. I mean, let's hope we get through this.
So everyone,
soon.
it's different for everybody. But you guys, thank you. Oh, we're only at 7:20.
You want to keep going, huh? Now, we can't keep going. Here's a viewer.
Roseanne, go ahead.
I noticed a viewer I hadn't seen before. Nancy Murphy, if you're still watching, I wanted to share your comment because, again, this is one viewpoint, but she kind of paints a picture here that you either can see or disagree with. She says she has two sons who could return to part-time in-person learning here shortly. She says, what about this scenario? They get on a bus with a few other carriers and they get to school and bring it to unvaxxed teachers and administrators and lunch ladies, custodians, counselors, who all bring it home then to their parents and elders, community members. The vaccine is out here. Can we be patient some more until it rolls out and they can all be vaccinated? This is an unnecessary risk, she says, until we are, or she says, we are literally risking human lives.
It's hard to disagree with that, in my opinion. We have the vaccine. Let's get rolling with the vaccine, with the vaccinations.
I mean, it really does come down to we are doing this so freaking slowly.
You know what I wish? I wish they would number it differently. Like suddenly we're talking today about maybe teachers would become part of the second group of vaccinated people.
It's like
group
1F. Yes.
Well, why are we going to the letters? Why
Just
can't
call
it
it
be
number 2. I totally agree with you.
Is the third rollout 1C or is that 3?
Sharon says, I don't love the idea of schools reopening. Children and teachers are not immune, and school can be a huge super spreader for the community. You know, just her opinion, but geez.
I think keeping masks on kids is going to be way more difficult than it has been keeping masks on
older
grocery store
kids.
shoppers.
Yes, the little ones, it's going to be super hard. Oh shoot, Jill Jones, I just had your comment. She was a teacher. She said she has been in class since September, and oh dang it, here it is. Nope.
Who were you just reading?
Jill Jones.
Okay.
I was looking for.
Jenny Wells says, thank you, Drew. Teachers and schools also need support, and there are many families and students who are thriving in this situation. We really hear that side, which Drew touched on, the fact that for some families this has been actually a positive in a lot of ways.
Did you read Anita Allen's It says we will not return till the staff is safe. The risk of infecting themselves and family members isn't worth it. And she says it's just 3 semesters. Just adapt and be patient.
Yeah. Jill Jones says, okay, I'm a teacher. We've been in school since the end of September. We are doing great with the COVID measures for safety, and it's a way bigger risk to be leaving kids at home dealing with depression and mental illness than it is to risk them catching COVID, in my opinion.
Wonder where we're at.
Rosanna, so maybe she's a private school. Rosanna says, I'm a nurse, I'm working, we need to go back safely. COVID may be here for years and we need to learn to live with it.
Joshua Madrid says there are a myriad of reasons to give students and their families a pathway back to in-person learning. The equity piece is huge, and there are far too many students that are falling so far behind due to not having opportunities to participate virtually at the same level as others. And I don't remember the name, but there was somebody else commenting about the equity piece, being harder on people who are in poverty or people of color, that type of thing. I mean, you really see things laid bare once this pandemic hit.
Yeah. But I hope in the next
Rosanna
couple of weeks we get a timetable. I'm sorry, Drew. I hope in the next couple of weeks we get a timetable from the governor in Oregon, speaking of specifically, of when we might have all of our teachers vaccinated. I feel like public pressure is starting to build, and maybe we'll start getting more timelines of when certain groups of people will be completely vaccinated.
And you guys, we have our lead story right now, if you go to kgw.com, is a great story about some of the reasons why they say it's been so slow. And so this Pfizer vaccine, the one you keep hearing, it has to go in the deep freeze. They have to take it out to thaw it before they inject it into your arm. And then the clock starts ticking if they can only have it out and thawed for 5 days. So they have to take out the number of doses and have that many people ready to go to get the shot and have it at the right temperature to get the shot. And then, of course, the old days of lining up your doctor's office or at the Safeway pharmacy to get your flu shot. COVID, you can't have people just lining up in a hallway. And then driving it, from cold storage to different, Providence hospitals, but yes, it's been kind of.
But the one thing we did not have in our story was, okay, we get it, but other states are somehow doing it much faster. So why aren't we doing it as quickly as other states are dealing with the exact same vaccine?
Unless they're just so scared they don't want to mess it up, that would be a worse headline than being slow. Who knows?
If things ran smoothly, Rod, what the heck would we talk about?
Yeah.
All right, gang, that does it for today's Sunrise Extra. We do thank you for joining us and weighing in. Both sides of the fence well represented today. We'll come up with another topic. We'll discuss that one as well with you tomorrow. We hope to see you then.